A smart gun operative is a specialized person per squad, meaning that there can be up to a max of 4 smart gunners, and I have seen the maximum change depending on population. So like at lower pop, I've seen a max of 3 smart gun operators roll, and technically I have seen up to 5 because some of the maps there can be a 4-con smart gunner, but that's unnecessary information for how the smart gunner works. The smart gunner's primary job is to suppress and keep shooting your gun. You have a smart gun. This means this gun has IFF capabilities, meaning you cannot hurt any Marines. You can shoot people like colonists, so even though you have basically no one you can actually team damage, still make sure you actually can see or know what you're shooting at, because otherwise you might hit somebody you don't intend to hit. It's unlikely, but I have seen smart gunners gun down colonists several times. Also, quick disclaimer, I'm not an expert at a smart gunner. I have probably only like 7 or 8 smart gun rounds under my belt now, but the smart gun operator is simple enough that I can at least explain how it mechanically works. When you spawn in as a smart gunner, you will wake up in the general cryo of whatever squad of Marines you roll in, so Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. Then you will just walk to the left until you see the smart gun room. You can just literally right click all the doors and see which smart gun room, or see which room is a smart gun room. It's pretty close to the where the armory is. You have 2 machines dedicated to you: the squad smart gun equipment rack and the smart gun operator gear rack. We'll just start with the smart gun equipment rack. To get started, you're still going to put on your standard Marine apparel. And every other option you have in here is not unique, except you have to choose one belt. Both of these belts will come with 2 additional smart gun drums. So here is the 2 belt choices compared. I'm not going to tell you which one to pick, but I think that it doesn't really make any sense to get the sidearm rig, and you'll see why in a second. So the normal operator drum belt comes with 2 additional 500 round box mags, or drum mags I mean. So you have 1,000 rounds in here, and it can hold up to 4 more. So you can hold 3,000 rounds of ammunition in this belt. The sidearm one comes with 2 as well, but it can only hold 2 additional, and it has 1 sidearm slot, so that is 1,000 less bullets you can carry on your belt, and that also means that your belt is going to have a sidearm in it. However, as soon as you aren't using your smart gun as a smart gunner, why, you're not a smart gunner anymore, you're just a rifleman at that point. Yeah, you do have the ability to fireman carry, and you have JTAC 1, but that's not really any much different than like somebody like a rifleman. Anyways, that's your 2 belt options. I've never picked a sidearm rig. I prefer having all my drums in one place. Now, onto the next rack, which has more unique gear in it. This is where the fun starts. You have the smart gun system case. This is where your smart gun is located. To actually equip the smart gun, you first must put on the combat harness, and you have to have no backpack equipped. I'm keeping everything on screen so you can actually see it. So you pick up your harness and you press Z, and this will put on your harness. Next, if you need to equip your smart gun, and what that means, you just left click it to put in your hand. It already has 500 bullets in it, so you don't have to put a mag in, and you come with 3 additional magazines. So without anything going on, you will start with 3,000 rounds for your smart gun, regardless of which belt you picked. Once you put the gun on your back by pressing F, you can then wear your ML66A head-mounted sight. This goes on your eye slot, and this gives you perfect night vision. You can see in the dark everywhere. Remember, most Marines cannot see in the dark, so even if you charge into somewhere that's dark, don't expect people just to blindly follow you, because you may not even be aware it's dark. But I have seen smart gunners run off into the abyss, thinking they themselves can see what every other Marine sees, but in reality, only they're seeing that it's clear where other Marines aren't as confident. Anyways, you probably should support your smart gunner if you can. But also, smart gunners that run off on their own in the dark areas by themselves are not going to live very long, and you will probably be gibbed. Anyways, as mentioned, there are 3 additional drums in here, and this is why I recommend you take the drum operator belt, because with this, you can just quickly put all the extra drums in your belt to even it out. Not quite fully, but we'll get to that. Finally, the last thing in this kit is a battery. The battery runs the smart gun. However, I have played full 2-hour rounds of a smart gun where I have fired over 7,000 bullets, and I only had to replace my battery a single time. So the fact that it has a battery mechanic is something you have to can be concerned with probably once, maybe twice in a really long match. It's not a big deal. Before we move out of this gear rack, you could pick one of 3 things. Funnily enough, the laser sight, the red dot sight, and the reflex sight, none of these actually fit on the smart gun. The only thing that as far as I'm aware, can fit on the smart gun is a rail light, which you should just take. There's no downside. So you could pick something like the laser sight or the reflex sight and hand it out to other Marines. Otherwise, you could put it on a sidearm if you want to carry a sidearm. Again, I'm not telling you what loadouts to take. Effecting at 45 points means you could spend a lot of extra money on something like a frag grenade. You could buy the restricted like pistol ammo stuff. You could buy yourself a pistol. However, what I would recommend taking is the harness machete scabbard, because normally you can't have a backpack with this, but this is compatible with your smart gun armor, and then you can have a machete on your back. The smart gun's actually a pretty competent melee weapon. It does 20 units of blunt, meaning you can melee things like weeds and stuff without having to pull out your machete. But if you know you're safe and you need a machete something, that is an option. With your additional 30 points, it's really up to you. I see smart gunners get things like an additional battery, even if you don't really need it. Again, I've only ever used one extra battery before. It's up to you. Getting things like medical optics and stuff can be useful if you have a helmet. Getting a laser designator is never bad. Of course, you always get some of these things from Rec. But the harness machete scabbard is the most unique thing here. So thankfully, the loadout options are pretty easy to understand. You can get a free webbing from the previous one. You can get pouches. You can get first aids. I'm not going to explain every single loadout choice. I'm explaining what's unique to the Smart Gunner. So now let's get on to the bread and butter. The Smart Gun has a bunch of different options. Once the Smart Gun is in your hand, you have 5 options total relating to your gun. You have toggle recoil compensation. If you try to shoot the Smart Gun, which the Smart Gun requires 2 hands, without this, your screen will shake to a nauseating amount. You should just leave this toggle recoil compensation on permanently so you can actually see and not get a headache playing this game. You will have no recoil after this, and it is basically mandatory. The fact that you can even turn it off is on. I feel like you should just always have it on. The second ability is toggle auto fire, and I feel like this one just is never really all that useful. What it does is it will auto fire at whatever position you're looking at the closest Xeno, and then it kind of like locks onto them. So like if I like walk away and like even at this range, it will and does aimbot them. However, this does drain your battery and it still uses bullets. It also doesn't work if I'm shooting. Like in that situation, it did work because I happened to catch it between that. Like if you tap fire at all, it can work in that regard, but I don't know. I just never really see much of a reason for people to use it. Again, wasting your battery isn't that big of a deal, but generally you're just going to be shooting at your targets and that auto aiming doesn't really help. I thought in situations maybe like where you're stunned, the gun will keep shooting, but that's not the case. Even if you're at the edge of a queen screech, it will prevent you from being able to it won't auto fire. The third ability is your ability to toggle ammo type. By default, you will be firing highly precise ammo. This does 30 damage a shot to armored targets, and you immediately start losing damage the more armor they get. For example, against a 0 armor target, as mentioned, you do 30. Against a 15 armor target, you only do 18. And this brings into the other ammo type, which is armor shredding. This does only 20 damage a shot, so against a non-armor target like a drone, you'll lose a third of your DPS. However, as soon as a Xeno has 15 armor or greater, you're now doing significantly more DPS. So for example, highly precise damage against a defender that is not doing anything, which has 35 armor, will only do 6 damage. But if you shoot a defender with the shredding ammo, it will still do 20. As I will quickly demonstrate right here, shoot them with 1 precise shot, pull out the health analyzer, which somebody pointed out, so I don't have to view variables in every single thing, thank you. We have done 20 pierce to even a 35 armor defender. Against a fortified defender, they have 70 frontal armor, and shooting them with the armor shredding round will still do some damage, but not a whole lot. So still in this situation, yeah, if you have a ton of ammo and there's nothing else to really shoot, you can shoot the defending or the fortified defender, but this isn't true damage. But mostly in this situation is shoot everything except fortified defenders unless there's nothing else to shoot and you're confident with your ammo supply, or that's just the only thing to shoot. So armor piercing against 15 or more armored Xenos, which is pretty much all armored Xenos, or don't use that against non-armored Xenos. Also, if you're shooting something like resin walls, resin doors, be in highly precise so you can shoot through them quicker, hive clusters, all those things. You don't want to use armor shredding on because they don't technically have armor, you just want more raw damage. The fourth ability on the Smart Gun is to turn off IFF. You usually would not want to do this. However, if you notice a Marine getting dragged away in a hopeless situation and you're the only one who has a direct line of sight of shooting them, and that is just the best situation is to never let a Marine get capped. A dead Marine is better off than a captured Marine. You can shoot them to death. And with the armor shredding, you will kill them rather quickly. The fifth and final ability is motion detector. This does not, unlike normal motion detectors, does not have the ability to tell you like on the gun itself, there's no number to tell you if it says 5, 6, 7 or pings. You can then right click the Smart Gun to either swap between short range and long range like a normal motion detector. And just in case if you've never actually seen what the motion detector looks like, you'll get these pings that indicate motion. This it will indicate any non-friendly thing moving. This includes corpses, colonists, you name it. It's not always immediately something you should be shooting at, but if they're getting motion detection pings, that is something your IFF will not protect against. Just an FYI. And that is the basics of the smart gun and all of its abilities. The smart gun has a smart harness built in, or a magnetic harness, so if you ever get CC'd or knocked down, it will automatically go back on your back. Pressing F is your friend does this. If you ever get knocked down, it'll be on your back, so you just press F to pull it back out. It is instantaneous to pull it off and on, surprisingly. I guess the harness itself helps with that. So just keep that in mind. You don't always need the gun wielded either. Wielding it slows you down. So the stats of the smart gun are pretty impressive, but the DPS of it is actually not any like better than a normal marine weapon. For example, something like just the MK2 shoots one bullet slower, but the normal damage of the M54 is actually higher. So you're not necessarily a DPS power hose. However, though, since you have 500 bullets, what you have is a ton of damage per magazine and consistent firing. You can reload basically instantaneously. For example, C will interact with your offhand. So if you have your belt set up, I press my pull from belt hotkey, press C, and now my new magazine is instantly in. This gun fires 5 bullets a second, so at best, you could be doing 150 DPS a second if you're shooting an unarmored target with highly precise bullets in effective range and not missing. At worst, it only does 100 DPS shooting an armored target that's not too armored like a fortified defender in effective range. So what is the effective range of a smart gun? Well, I'll just go through and shoot each one of these drones with highly precise bullets of 30 damage a shot to give an idea of the damage range. Yes, they are blood splattering each other, but that's okay. We're just going to look for the non-acid damage. So this one I'm actually shooting off screen vertically, but if I rotate my camera, they're somewhat near the edge, but not entirely off screen, but that's all we need for this demonstration. So what's the damage drop off? The drone that is 3, 4, 5, and 6 tiles away took all 30 damage. I'll just show it real quick. 6 tiles away took 30 damage. However, as soon as they start getting past that range, they start taking less damage. And shooting one at the edge of your vertical limit of your screen will take 25 damage. However, what if we shoot one at the edge of our horizontal range? Well, we could just find out very quickly. So I'll spawn it in at the edge of my screen, which is like 9, 10 tiles away about. Again, you can see further if you rotate your camera with 7 or 9, just a little bit further. We actually can hit this thing. There we go. We'll see that we have done, well, less than 27. We have only done about 17. So if you shoot a Xeno that is basically off of your screen by half, assume you're having half your damage fall off, which it's not insignificant. Doing that much damage at something basically off your screen when you can shoot as much and as fast as you can is not nothing to sneeze at. However, shooting armor targets that far away, you're starting to do very little damage. So shooting at a Ravager that is off screen, you're very unlikely to secure the kill with the extra 10 or 20 damage. But again, it's up to ammo conservation. It's up to if you need to suppress a situation. This isn't a guide of how to like be the best smart gunner ever. In situations I played, it feels like shooting at targets that are running away doesn't really do much. You're best off covering pushes, covering bad pushes, as in covering recovery efforts, and when the queen is running right at your marines, putting as many armor shredding bullets as you can into them will probably prevent a capture because they're going to get too hurt to keep dragging or to keep using their paralyzing spit. Either way, this is a pretty wordy guide, but hopefully should mechanically explain how to at least get your equipment on. Again, for loadout stuff, I don't know what to recommend other than just the stuff in the vendor. Grab some medicine. I don't really recommend getting a sidearm because if you can't really lose your smart gun without losing yourself. You can put a rail flashlight on it. That's worth doing. You can get the machete backpack. Also, one final thing worth mentioning. In the locker room, there is a squad munitions. In here, there is actually one additional smart drum mag you can get, where if you take this, it will fill out your entire smart gun operator drum belt. You can get an additional drum from Rec as well. I have seen Rec give out one extra drum. I think they have like 4 additional, which there can be 4 smart gunners. So it could be worth bringing down the extra mag. If you are running low on drums, say you only got 2 left, please talk to your FTLs or your squad leader in order to get more ammo. A smart gunner with no ammo is just a glorified rifleman, or potentially not even a rifleman at all if you're down to a pistol. Best of luck out there. Learning how to put on your equipment is literally the hardest part. Otherwise, this is just pretend you're using the scope battle rifle with the smart scope, but you hit harder. You, again, can fireman carry people. If you don't know what a fireman carry is, I will just demonstrate that real quick. You can control left click somebody, control left click them again to aggressively grab them. If you drag them onto you, you'll load them onto your back. So you can have the smart gun in one hand and fireman carry somebody. So quick fireman carry guide. And then you also have JTAC 1, which means you can slightly call in like laser designations a little bit quicker. That is it. The smart gun obviously is the only thing that lets you use your smart gun. Other people don't have that. Thank you for watching.